Welcome to Wiser Wealth Management's 5 and 20, where we cover 5 topics in the next 20 minutes. I'm Brad Lyons, and with me is Matthews Barnett. Hi, Matthews.
How's it going?
Going well, thank you. You know, we got 5 topics here that are very interesting. We utilize this type of information every day as we make recommendations to our clients for investment planning and long-term planning. These are things of interest to us, but they're things that we utilize, in our thought process as well. Let's talk about vaccinations. As the economy is opening up both economically and socially, due in fact to people are getting vaccinated. To date this year, 156 million Pfizer vaccination shots have been administered. 122 million Moderna have been administered. Now, both of these require 2 shots, so you divide that by 2, and there's been 78 million people vaccinated with Pfizer, 61 million people vaccinated with the Moderna shot. The J&J shot, Johnson & Johnson, requires a single shot, single dose. 10 million people have received that shot already. Now, you just do the math. There's 150 million people in the U.S. today that have been fully vaccinated with the shot. So out of a country of 330 million, at least about 80 million or so to go. Now, we know that the rate is slowing down a bit, and that's not something that we should not have should be unexpected. The people who really wanted it, they rushed in front of the line, essentially, got their shot. Now we're getting those that are, we're a little bit more relaxed about the pandemic, perhaps, or we're a little unsure. But we're still inoculating people or vaccinating people at a rate of 2 million a day. So
that's impressive in such a short period of time. What also was kind of interesting was the Center for Disease and Prevention. The New York Times did an article on actually that 8% of those who got the initial Pfizer or Moderna shot actually missed their second shot. That equated to over 5 million people. A lot of people said they were either scared because the second one was probably more issues with flu-like symptoms. Others said that they thought the first one was enough for them and they felt protected already. And then the other part of it was just supply. There are shortages, which I think we've addressed now. They're pretty much anywhere, any Walgreens, CVS, as well as other providers through the counties. So they've done a really good job allowing everybody that wanted to get the vaccinations right now.
Well, it's been a gargantuan task, and I've thought about what word could I use to describe inoculating an entire population of people in such a short time. It's gargantuan. The U.S. government has really put forth a great effort in this and coordinated it with our medical service delivery system.
Yeah, so, easy to sign up for, and you're in and out in under an hour, so it's tough to do that.
Okay.
So the second topic we're going to cover is the food delivery services grew in popularity, not just over recent years, but specifically in the pandemic. But unfortunately, their earnings are still under pressure. I'm not sure if our listeners use food delivery services, the apps like DoorDash, Uber, Grubhub. I used to use Postmates as well, but their fees got a little ridiculous. We can cover that here in a second. But during that pandemic, they had record sales, record business, but most of them weren't actually making money, which is kind of surprising. Stat I saw that was interesting was DoorDash was the only company during the pandemic that got out of the red last year. So for one quarter, they were actually out of the red, but no other companies, food delivery services were. And that's they haven't been profitable actually in 8 years. So it's a very huge business like DoorDash, and they're not profitable. So kind of interesting the way they make up these apps and their business structures are.
Yet to be seen how these will pan out, but they certainly are a convenient service. And I think people of all generations, of all demographics, are looking at getting food delivery systems, in place, in their own lives. Look, you work all day. You go home, you're tired. You may not want to fix a meal, but you still want to have a good meal. Call DoorDash.
Yeah. That's those food delivery services where they prepackage food or you can cook it. And then they've got this to your favorite local restaurant. I think the issue is how they're going to really, it's very costly and very labor intensive with low margins. So they're talking about scalability of how they're going to make profit. Currently, under their current structure, they make money by charging restaurants a percentage of the order and then a service fee. But you got to remember that they're paying drivers. They have a ton of money in ads, probably most in ads. And then if they get orders incorrect, they have to completely refund the order. So it's very expensive.
Should be interesting to see as we get more and more fully vaccinated and more the economy continues to open up, how well these companies can continue to do, because people now are going to restaurants,
Right.
whereas before they were ordering from restaurants. So it should be interesting to follow.
It will. I mean, you look at their profitability right now. We said they're not very profitable. DoorDash, for example, they get about 2.5% of a bill. So the average order during the pandemic was $36. They actually only made 90 cents on that order. So you got to do a lot of volume. And if they weren't doing it during the pandemic, when people were ordering a ton of food online and not go anywhere, there might be some restructuring that needs to be done. That is kind of why they've gone into grocery sales, alcohol sales, delivery, if their state allows it, and then non-perishable items. I thought it was kind of interesting. The article was mentioning Cheesecake Factory. The thing that got left off the most on Cheesecake Factory orders was the cheesecake itself, because they focused so much on packaging the hot food and getting that to go that they forgot to put in the cheesecake after that. So cold items and perishable items were getting left. So there's definitely a business model that they're going to have to change up a little bit here.
That'll be interesting to see. You know, all these things kind of go on because we talked about vaccinations, food delivery service. Now let's talk about unemployment benefits. Okay, during the pandemic, states paid unemployment benefits to workers who lost their jobs due to the pandemic. The federal government stepped in and paid an extra amount unemployment assistance on top of the state amount. 24 states have now decided to end the federal assistance. They'll continue with the state level assistance, but they've decided to end the federal level of $300 per week. It includes Georgia, where we are. So the state benefits will continue through September 6th. The federal benefits will end here in June, along with the 23 other states that have decided to end this. And they've decided to end it, generally speaking, because there are jobs that are available now that they're trying to fill with workers, and they want to move people off the unemployment rolls and into the workforce and trying to get back to normalization of this economy. It's going to be a tough sell, without a doubt, to these people. They've used this to maintain their living, expenses, paying their bills, raising their families, and so on. But at the moment, there's just a lot of jobs out there, and we notice that a lot of them are in the service industry, where maybe these people who are hit the hardest. So we'll see if we can, backfill these jobs. I'd like to take an example of a worker in Georgia that's out of work due to the pandemic. They were fully eligible for the full weekly benefit from the state, plus the additional $300 from the federal government. So at the state level here in Georgia, the maximum you can get is $365 a week. And you add on top of that, the federal and benefit that's now going to end, and you can kind of see, where we're at relative to how much they're earning.
Yeah, I mean, that equates to about $665 a week with the state and federal employment there. That's, let's say, $16.62 an hour. That's $34,500 a year, of which the first $10,000 is tax free. So that's a pretty big paycheck for being unemployed.
Yeah, it is. And given now the fact that the Bureau of Labor and Statistics claims that there's about 8 million job openings right now in the United States. Many of these states, these governors of these states, have decided that it's time to disincent people from staying on the federal benefit. They'll continue to provide the state benefit. In many instances, several states are converting the federal benefit to a bonus to employees and workers. If they go back to work and they stay on the job for a period of time, they will take that money that they would have gotten from the federal benefit and convert that to an employment bonus.
Yeah, it's like a signing bonus for going back to work.
How about that? Most often, employees or workers have cited reasons for not going back to work. And the number one is still the coronavirus. They're health concerns, especially if you're in the service industry where you are dealing with the general public directly in your job. So, and then lack of childcare has been another reason that's been cited. And of course, with the schools that have been closed for almost the entire school year last year, children who are schooling at home still need supervision. So those three reasons were the number one, 2, and 3 as to why people did not get back into the workforce as quickly as they may have otherwise.
Yeah, there's approximately 8 million jobs open right now, and if you drive around, you'll see a lot of trying to hire workers and managers. A lot of it at fast food and services industries, but there's a lot of jobs out there. So hopefully we can get people back to work and move forward, because it seems like we're starting to get through the pandemic a little bit.
It does. I'm glad to see it too.
Yeah.
Okay. Now all this is related, and we see that the first quarter GDP was left at unrevised at 6.4% for the first quarter. Okay. So they came out with their initial reading at 6.4%. Last week, they came out with the second reading, left it unrevised at 6.4%. Growth mainly due to, again, vaccine rollout, people getting back out into the society, getting back to work, lifting the economic and social restrictions that the states had applied in order to reduce the exposure from one to another of this pandemic. And then the massive government fiscal stimulus, over $6 trillion have been poured into this economy by the federal government in order to stimulate economic expansion. So what they saw in the first quarter is consumers who were flush with cash from those stimulus checks were the largest driver of GDP. Consumer durable goods, motor vehicles. I don't know if you go on car lots today. They're screaming for wanting to buy your car.
Used car sales. There's there's high demand, short supply, and it's you can see it in the pricing.
Now, for any of you who have listened to any of my other podcasts, you'll know that I have a boat, and I talk to marinas that have no boats for sale. They have already sold their entire year's allotment of different brands of boats. And I went by a used boat dealership the other day, and there was no boats in that yard. There were no boats whatsoever. They're just not out there. The supply chain has been so disrupted, okay, by this pandemic that they just cannot build things fast enough to sell into the marketplace. And those who have money are buying it up as fast as it hits.
Yeah, because everything's on back order. We've talked about it. We don't have furniture in this office right now in this room on back order. So
I have a propeller that's on back order.
Exactly. Anything.
And housing. Housing was very strong in the first quarter and expects to remain for a while. So the vaccinations, the food delivery service, people utilizing alternative methods, to socialize, to eat, and to be, with others. Getting back to work by ending the subsidies for unemployment. GDP was up in the first quarter. It all leads to corporate profits.
Exactly. Everything a company's looking at it as profits. So we're off to a good start this year. Corporations just started reporting Q1 profits, and they're 12% above reporting in Q1 of 2020. So of the 456 companies in the S&P 500 that reported Q1 earnings, 386 actually beat analyst expectations. So
that's a very high percentage.
It is. I mean, we expected some good numbers, but these are pretty large.
They are.
What I thought was interesting is going to see kind of how the companies, we mentioned DoorDash during the pandemic doing very well. There's companies, the stay-at-home companies that did very well during the pandemic, and now they're starting to fall off. I was looking at Etsy, which was kind of interesting. One of the highest returns during the pandemic in 2020, did over 300% in returns. Year to date, it's actually down 7%. And over the last 3 months, down 32%, 16% of that being in May alone. So it was one of the worst performing stocks in the S&P 500 when it was one of the highest last year during the pandemic. So it'll be interesting to see how the profits change and how companies shift now that we're kind of on the later part of this, getting out of the pandemic.
Well, I agree with you there on that, Matthews, because what companies that did well during the pandemic and the economic shutdown were disruptors. They disrupted the normal way of doing business. What's going to be the new disruptors are the old companies,
right?
Going back to the way things were, and they're going to disrupt the other disruptors. So it's going to be kind of a flip flop here, and we should see that in corporate earnings, in first quarter as they finish reporting, and now going forward now that we're in the second quarter. Okay. Well, great talking to you. Good 5 and 20. Interesting topics.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I appreciate it.
Great insight.
Thank you.